Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of the Propulsion Swimming Podcast. I'm your host Scott, and back with me as always, having a nice drink there, is my co-host and good friend Dan. And this week we are talking BUCS short course racing, as the biggest university short course competition is here upon us this weekend. I'm going to be there for every single final session, every single race, and we're here on this week's podcast to talk about why we love it, and also previewing some very, very good racings, because there's some big names turning up at this meet, as there always is for BUCS.
There are. I think there's a double figure amount of Olympians going. So that's actually a reason to go and watch in the first place. One of them being an Olympic gold medalist, for crying out loud, in Dan Whiffen, obviously. So if you're in the area of Sheffield, I suggest you go to BUCS and have a watch, because Scott was saying it is one of the biggest competitions. It's probably the second biggest, I would say, if long course is a little bit more
long course is a little bit
traditional more. And a bit more, thing about it. But short course is fast, it's fun, and we love it. We always talk about BUCS every year, get to do it twice per season, and we love it.
Yeah, well, we talk about it every year, and I think we've been building our own involvement into talking about it a little bit more as seasons go on. This year, we're approaching our 5th year ever of the Propulsion Swimming Podcast, Propulsion Swimming Adventure. We're committing even further. Like, we're going to be there every single session. We're going to be putting out social media of it, because this is a meet that is... You don't get these lineup of swimmers anywhere else other than British champs, really. And even then, British champs, you don't have your Dan Whiffens. And a lot of these swimmers are racing for scholarships. A lot of them are racing for points in the BUCS system, which is really important for sport funding in the whole of the UK. We want it to... It's never going to get to the size of NCAAs. It needs to get a bigger profile, because... just putting it out there, a lot of swimmers, more than I've noticed recently in Britain, have been looking over in America, and there's a lot of swimmers who are racing at this BUCS short course who have committed for 2025 to be going over to America. So if this competition gets bigger, maybe there's more chance that universities can keep hold of these swimmers.
We would very much love it to be just like NCAAs. How amazing would that be?
Yeah.
We were talking about recording actually how swimmers need to be a bit more involved in moving to different universities and actually being part of a bigger sort of setup, if that makes sense. Like, I represent Loughborough, and that should be a big deal. I represent Stirling, Birmingham, whoever it is, that should be a big deal, and you should celebrate it on your social medias, etc., etc. Would it ever get to NCAA level? It probably won't do, because it's just, I know they're struggling out there a little bit in terms of loss of funding, if I've got that right.
There's stuff happening over there.
There's that's a different conversation for another day. But in terms of this country, there is no bigger university competition, and you get all sorts of abilities coming, which I think is actually one of the biggest selling points of it. You get your international swimmers, like we were talking about. You also get your recreational swimmers, maybe like yourself, Scott, for example.
Mate, this is how I've raced at BUCS.
One of the funniest things I always find every time I've gone to BUCS is the Sunday morning zombies, the ones who've just gone out on a Saturday night and they've just literally crawled out of their bed and into the building, and they've got to then suddenly do a 200 fly or something like that, and it's quite funny to watch.
It really is. I'm looking forward to seeing it. It's that middle session usually, isn't it? Before the between the morning heats and the final, you get those recreational swimmers who've been on the night out the night before. But look, as long as we've got this platform of propulsion swimming, we're going to commit more time, more energy into university swimming in this country than we ever have before. We're big supporters that shout and scream about your racing this competition, swimmers, because it is a big deal. Like Dan said, there's a gold medalist at the Olympic Games. You've got the likes of Max Litchfield showing up. You've got Alex Cahoon, Dan Whiffen, Honey. I'm just going to name the Olympians here, but yeah. And as you've said, Dan, it's free to go and watch as well. Like, there's so many competitions in this country where you have to pay £5 to go sit on a poolside. Yeah. This time, you could go turn up for free, see your Dan Whiffens, see your Sunday morning zombies that Dan was on about, have a good laugh, chill out and just relax and watch some. It's short course racing. It is fast. It is going to be fast.
Some of the head-to-heads. Good. Yeah, the atmosphere is always good as well. I know it's hot and sticky on a Ponsford poolside, but the atmosphere is always absolutely bouncing. People dress up, people chant all the time, and I know it's usually all about your big universities, your Bath, your Loughborough, your Stirling, but actually it's the other universities that are slowly coming up through the ranks. Actually, they're the ones that you should keep your eye on more, actually.
Absolutely. Okay, so that's enough rambling about why we're doing this podcast for BUCS. Let's actually build up some of the races and what's happening. So like you said, Dan, there's double-digit Olympians here. Let's not forget, right, we've already spoken about the Olympians on show, that there are Paralympians as well taking part of these at BUCS this weekend. Something that we're seeing more and more at these major competitions is the integration of the para swimmers into the schedule. And these para swimmers that are on show are so good that they're racing in amongst like the able-bodied times. They don't have to be separated out into their own heats. And like we've got medalists, like international medalists on show, which is fantastic to see.
Yeah, so not only Dan Whiffen as the Olympic gold medalist, you've got Faye Rogers as the Paralympic gold medalist in the 100 fly. So you're getting the best of both worlds almost. Tony Shaw was a Tokyo medalist, and you've got Sam Downey, who's a world medalist. I mean, these are top quality swimmers on both the able-bodied side and the para side. So there's a lot to look forward to if you're a spectator on poolside. And we always talk about para swimming, and it needs to get more publicity. And the fact that it's integrated within the able-bodied sort of competition is, I can only see it as a positive.
And they do get their own medals. I believe it's awarded in between or just before the final session, if I remember correctly. So like the para rankings, if that makes sense, so the para medals are handed out separately, even if they're integrated within the heats program.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. I think that does make sense. But no, like it's like I'm looking forward to seeing Faye Rogers race for Aberdeen. Like she's a fantastic swimmer.
She's a world record holder in the 100 fly. So you're looking at a Paralympic medalist or gold medalist and a world record holder.
Yeah.
In one swimmer, obviously, and I mean you can't be disappointed. I hope that more para swimmers do take part in BUCS later on down the line, with more publicity and more credit.
It's not even more publicity. It's like given the chance to be integrated into university programs.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And maybe the universities will cotton onto that and give these swimmers, amazing swimmers, the funding that they need to be able to achieve the medals that they can get at the Paralympics. And we always talk about these swimmers are actually better than our able-bodied swimmers. They achieve more. They get more gold medals, more medals in general, actually, and more finals as well.
Yeah, I think Paralympics GB in the Summer Olympics just gone in Paris got second in the medal table.
Yeah,
overall, which is phenomenal. Yeah. And the swimmers were out of this world.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go through the other, like we've just name dropped all the Paralympians. Let's name drop some of the Olympians then, because if you look at who's racing for Loughborough University, you've got the likes of Freya Colbert, Max Litchfield. Somehow Loughborough University have got Max Litchfield racing for them this weekend. Laura Stevens, Honey Osrin, Dan Whiffen, Cornelia Fedkowitz, Alex Cahoon, Connor Ferguson, and then like at Stirling University you've got, it's albeit, okay, Stirling sent a lot of aquatics GB swimmers over to the Paris Olympics. There's only 3 of them, and they actually have a shortened program right now, but there is the Olympic hangover. We'll get to that. We'll talk a little bit about that later on. But you've got Katie Shanahan, you've got Kiana McInnes, you've got Ang Harrod-Evans, and then for Birmingham, obviously, they've got Ollie Morgan, who doesn't have an easy schedule. He's racing literally everything under the sun. So that is a grand total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That is 12 Olympians showing up at a short course meet in Sheffield. Where you can watch for, I'm going to say it again, watch for free. Doing their big competitions.
Doing their main events as well.
And going head to head. Like there are some rivalries here, which we have got circled for British champs later on in 2025.
Yes, I know, exactly. Yeah.
Which we get to preview early on in this year. And I know a lot of these swimmers are still big in their training blocks. They are racing heavy.
Yeah.
This isn't something that really many of them will have tapered for, but that's what makes it fun. You get to see like almost... That's what makes it fun. You get to see head-to-head racing more than you do times against the clock. And don't get me wrong, there will be BUCS short course records here.
I'm sure there will be, yeah.
But at the same time, like there's some real... Even beyond the Olympians, there are some real races I've circled heading into this BUCS that I'm looking forward to.
We'll definitely talk about that in a minute, but I think that's what makes the collegiate system in America so exciting, is that there's times, I know you get NCAA records, of course you do, just like you do BUCS records, but actually it's not really about that. It's actually just about getting your hand on the wall first and winning for your university or your college. And that's really the big selling point, really. And then, like you said, there's some massive swimmers here doing their very best races as well. Not that their times are going to be anywhere near what their probably best times are. Maybe they will be. But yeah, it's going to be quite exciting, and we'll probably go through the races now if you want to go for it.
Yeah, let's go. I've got 4 kind of, I say races, they're more events because some of them double up in terms of distances.
Yes,
So the first one that I'm really looking forward to is men's distance events. And this goes beyond Dan Whiffen. So Dan Whiffen back in the water is a really exciting prospect. We always love seeing him race, and he always goes after records, especially BUCS records when he races.
Yeah.
Start of a season after the Olympic cycle, I'm not expecting records, but it would be cool to see. But behind him, I think there's a really interesting battle because Tyler Melbourne Smith, also of Loughborough, ended the season really, really well last year. While the Olympics was going on, was setting some really good personal bests across the board in the freestyle events, from 200 all the way up to 800. Yeah. And he is, I mean, could he beat Dan Whiffen? I don't know. But he is certainly an up-and-comer, and when you think of the depth that is going to come through later on in the 4x2 team for British swimming, he's a name later on in the year to pay attention to. And then there is Alex Sargent, formerly of Millfield, who's now gone to Swansea University, who obviously have the pedigree of Adam Baker there, and the training that they've done with Dan Jervis has worked for so long. So it's those two kind of distance programs always go head-to-head in these distance events, and you've got Joe Degan to add to that mix.
Yep.
So it's those two again. Well, it's the 2 Swansea boys against the 2 Loughborough boys. I'm really looking forward to the top end battle and seeing the progress that Tyler and Alex Sargent can really make, essentially. And you never know, they could get Dan Whiffen cold off the back of an Olympic.
Yeah, that's bragging points right there, isn't it? I just like the idea that they have moved to, I think, the correct places. Tyler's gone from Liverpool and then moved to Loughborough, probably because of where Dan Whiffen trains. And so if you can kind of keep up with the Olympic champion, you're obviously doing the right thing.
He has been there for over a year now, and you're starting to see the benefits.
Yeah, definitely. And it does take a while to get used to those benefits. Like Ed Mildred is probably one that we'll probably talk about in a minute, where it took him quite a while to get used to the setup in Bath. And I suppose it's probably the same for Tyler, and he's now seeing the benefits of that. And Alex Sargent is definitely one to watch out for. I think he might just be the next one to come through on the distance side of things for GB.
He podiumed at Champs, didn't he?
Yes, yeah. So that'll be exciting. And Joe Dagan's always there as well. The Swansea camp in the distance side of things has always been very, very strong. I mean, Dan Jervis has been leading the light for GB for X amount of years now, and these guys are now following suit. So it's almost like a changing of the guard as such. Like, these guys are young, so they're coming through quite nice. Yeah. So I agree. Yeah, those distance events are really good. And if we stay on the men's side of things, I like the backstroke. You got your Ollie Morgan and Conor Ferguson. No Cam Brooker, unfortunately, in the 100 back. But I think the 100 back is an exciting race to get forward to.
Yeah, it's a rivalry that's been brewing over, I'd say a friendly rivalry, but it gets very competitive at BUCS racing when these two go head to head. They don't often get to go head to head because obviously Ollie's British, Connor's Irish, so they won't race at like a championships level, but they do race at a BUCS level. And whenever they race at a BUCS level, it is kind of fireworks. And last year, Cam Brooker had the fireworks at the 100, but he's targeting the 2-3 instead, of which he podiumed last year. So I kind of get that. It does clash with the 100 back. He's still doing the 2 backstroke, so there's a chance there. You've got the likes of Matt Ward as well to throw into this backstroke. Jack Skerry. It's a rivalry. It's a head-to-head I'm really looking forward to. It's on day one, so they're still going to be fresh. Like, I know Ollie's got a ton of events he's going to be doing for Birmingham. He's got all the backstrokes, he's got some of the freestyles, he's got a lot of the relays as well. So he's going to be one very, very busy swimmer. But the hundreds, especially this instant head-to-head between them, you know what? Jack Skerry could even get in amongst them. It's one... I mean, backstroke in this country, like we said it heading into Champs last year, is deep. Like, it's really, really deep. No matter what level the final winning time is always a good head-to-head, and this is like the starting of it for this season.
Yeah, and I can't remember if you mentioned Matt Ward just then or not, but there's another name to add in if you didn't mention him. So there's a good handful of swimmers there who are all, if I remember correctly, very strong at underwater as well, which is obviously extremely key when it comes to short course racing. It's going to be a very exciting race, and imagine watching that on the first day of the weekend. Like, that should really whet your appetite for the rest of the weekend, don't you think?
Yeah, and while we're talking backstroke then, I'm moving on to the next race to watch, kind of female backstroke, because you've got 2 Olympians, Katie Shanahan, Honey Osren. You got Freya Colbert doing the 2 backstrokes, so 3 Olympians. Then you throw in Lauren Cox, who I would say out of those 3, I would say out of the 4 of those names I've just named is probably the short course underwater specialist out of the 4 of them.
She's a sprint backstroker, she's world champ.
Yeah.
World medalist, isn't she, in the 50 back? Yeah.
Absolutely. So then that's a world-class field. And then you've got the likes of Neve Ward from Bath as well to add to the mix. That, yeah, like I said, there's head-to-heads here with Olympians, 3 of them, when it comes to the 200. And then the 100, you've got Olympians and a world medalist.
Yeah. This is arguably more exciting, if I'm honest, based on all of those stats you've just said. Yeah. Okay, fine. Let's throw this at you here. What's the one event you're most looking forward to in this female backstroke? Is it the 50, 100, or 200?
I'd say the 2.
Yeah,
weirdly enough, because I hate to say it, I think Lauren's got the fast twitch over the rest of them of the 50.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Definitely over the 50. And then the 2 you throw Freya Colbert, Katie Shanahan, and Honey Osren. Out of those 3, all of them are really suited better to the 2.
To the 2. Yeah. No,
Which is why I think the 2 is the more exciting head-to-head.
Yeah, when it comes to the 50 back, I think Lauren's kind of already won it, if I'm honest. And then the 200 and maybe even the 100, it gets a little bit more exciting, I think. But yeah, I think the 200 is probably the one to look out for. And again, it's the underwaters. You've got more walls, more turns to utilise that. And Katie Shanahan is pretty good at that. But I can't remember if she is actually racing the 200 backstroke.
No, you're right. She isn't racing the 200 backstroke. But Holly McGill is, who obviously came super close to actually getting on to that Olympic team in the 2 backstroke.
Yeah, another name to watch, for sure. Definitely. Yeah,
absolutely.
So that's a very exciting sort of couple events there. And then I think the one exciting race for me, as well as that female backstroke, is the female fly. You got Lucy Greaves, Laura Stevens, and Kiana McInnes leading the way. I think Kiana McInnes, this is her only event actually. It's the 100 fly out of the whole weekend. And this is not her. I mean, she's good at 100 fly, but 200 fly is her go-to, I would have thought. And actually, out of those names, even though Laura Stevens is a world medalist, Kiana McInnes went to the Olympics, it's actually Lucy Grieve in the 100, who I think is probably the one to try and beat here, because she seems to be the short course specialist, I would say. She's got stronger turns and there's faster twitch, like you were saying with Lauren, is kind of there with her more so than Lauren and Kiana.
And she hasn't come off the back of an Olympic Games. She got a rest this summer.
yeah, I guess so.
Which it does make a difference. Like you think some of the ones who are off the Olympic Games really have only got back into training for their block, 4 weeks? No, a lot longer than 4 weeks now. So like 8 weeks ago?
It depends. It'd be different for everyone.
It could be all over the place.
Yeah, it could be. And that's why you can't judge it on times and PBs, because they'll be...
Yeah, you judge it
really
on the racing.
You just got to base it on places and how they finish touching the wall. But that's another good one to watch out for as well, the women's 100 fly.
Okay, so beyond races to watch then, other names that we've not mentioned. So I was recently at Loughborough 50s. We've got a video of that coming out soon. Calvin Fry clean swept the whole event there. So he won all the 50s, 4 of each stroke, 1 underwater, and the 100 IM against some pretty good swimmers. There's no slouches. There's the whole of the university squad. So I would say at a short course competition, not straight off the back of that was like 4 weeks ago now, he's one that I'm really looking forward to seeing. Yes. Josh Gammon.
Yes, that's the one
always shows up for Bath University. He's got a bit of a chip on his shoulder, given that he didn't get picked for the Olympic team and got the Olympic qualifying time, if that makes sense, in the 100 fly last year. And then I think there's some youngsters who can start making the step up who have like recently transferred from club scene over to university scene. So this is the first time we're going to be seeing the likes of Evie Dilly, who's moved from Millfield up to Stirling. You've got Leah Schlossen, who's now at Manchester University. These are names of like the European junior squad, who people who pay attention to that are probably very familiar with, who are now onto the university scene. I mean, swimmers can be made at like meets like this, and this can springboard momentum like it did for Ang Harrod Evans last year.
Yes, exactly. And this is why I think it might be good for someone like Josh Gammon. I've really circled him because he was doing really well at the end of last year. And I don't know if, like you say, maybe there's a chip on his shoulder, a little bit of sort of aggression in the swim to try and get in doing the best times he possibly can, and then hopefully put his name in the hat for international
world short
champs
course
in Singapore, or even world short course potentially in a matter of weeks. Yeah, that's another point. What do you think, right? So you see this in NCAAs, especially in America, when people have a bit more of a hoo-ha that they go into Texas, they go into Arizona, whatever, and they put it on their social media, and I'm going to this university. Do you reckon this should be more of a thing in this country? Like, for example,
100%.
Ed Mildred moving to Manchester, Leah Schlosser moving to Manchester as well. Like, they should be promoting Manchester as well as themselves, effectively.
It's difficult because in this country, unlike in America, there isn't this big commercial engine, but like there is commercial engine in terms of universities. They're big monetary organizations, but in terms of like sport, swimming isn't bringing in a huge amount of money for these universities, whereas over in America the athletic department needs to make a lot of money to be funding themselves, so you need to it's almost self-promotion, or it's almost promoting the university. But I get what you're saying. Like, everyone here is fans of British swimming. Everyone who's listening to this is fans of British swimming. They listen to us to circle which swimmers that they're looking forward to, or which races that have been highlighted. So, like, we've had to trawl through the start sheet to note where certain swimmers are gone. We did this last year when there was like a plethora of young swimmers who suddenly joined Loughborough University, for an example. This year is a little bit scattered all over the place, a lot more than I've noticed previously. So there's a really good young core coming through at Edinburgh now. We've already talked about Alex Sargent moving over to Swansea. You've got Ed Mildred going to Manchester Met. You've got Leah Schlosser at Manchester. You're right. These swimmers, if I'm trying to make a name for myself as a swimmer and trying to professionalize how I'm doing my own journey at this point, which I don't think swimming in this country's got yet. I don't think it's understood that. You should be standing there with a jersey, and maybe universities need to hand out a bit more free stash and just say, I've committed to Loughborough University, or I've committed to Stirling. And some universities on their own do this right. They really do, because they put out their squads. And they're
good on social media, some of them, definitely.
Yes. But I think it's up to the swimmers really to push it themselves. And I think all it's going to take is one or two to make that move and just say, look, I've signed for Stirling for next year, or I've committed to studying at Stirling next year, or wherever it is. If you're a big-time junior swimmer and that is how you make your transition onto the senior stage and start, like...
I think if one university starts it, then they will kind of follow suit, because it will look good for the university and think, oh, why aren't we doing that? And so they'll start doing it, and then it'll be a knock-on effect when then the whole country, university-wise, will start doing that. I think it's a positive thing that should start to happen. We don't want to copy America all the time, but there are some things that they do.
That thing I think we do need to... Yeah. It's just like awareness, so that you're trying to build, while you're being a swimmer and a professional swimmer, if you are truly going to make it, you need money in your back pocket. Let's be honest. Well, you need funding, or you need a lot of money. And the way to do that, if you don't have big funding, is sponsorships and stuff like that. And it's doing that professional social media game, which it's hard to do. It's hard to understand if you've never really done it. But it's
brands start then approaching you, because it looks like you're
forward facing
of that. Yes, exactly. Yeah,
you need to be quite a forward facing individual to do that. But if by doing that, you might get people who follow you and follow your results, which comes with its own pressures, of course, don't get me wrong. But it also could come with brands who want to follow you and follow your results. It's difficult.
I don't think it takes a lot of effort either, if I'm honest. Like, you just have your jersey, a university jersey, and you post a picture or an image or a reel even on social media, and it doesn't take too long to do that, I don't think. And the results, or the things that can come back your way, are actually the potential is massive.
Yeah, if you did this is like a whole separate like webinar series we could do and put it together for swimmers about how to really start getting it right. If you are interested in that, just drop us a DM and we'll happily have a chat, like if we've got time, about how best to start promoting yourselves and start building a following, because we've gone on a massive tangent here.
I know we have, definitely.
This is a big event that needs to get bigger, and while it is down to BUCS to keep pushing it bigger, it's down to universities to keep pushing eyes on this. Swimmers can do a job as well and keep pushing eyes on this and hopefully reap the rewards of it.
Yeah, I mean, BUCS is massive. I mean, let's go through some of these entries. Like the men's 53, right, has got 334 entries.
Okay, so that's enough waffle about BUCS. Like, I'm going to be there for 3 days. Our social media is going to be covered in university races. The best races of the night, we'll get it up. We will. Do you know what? I'm probably not going to sleep much this weekend because it's going to be getting like our British champs level coverage, that the best of our abilities that I can do with one camera on a poolside. Yeah. Who then, Dan, do you think will win? Because the gap has been closing.
It's definitely closing.
Year on year. Like, Loughborough have won this BUCS for God knows how many years in a row now.
Yeah.
But the gap is closing. And like I said, the distribution of some of the freshers and freshmen coming through at the university scene is certainly spread out a little bit more.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a chance that a Stirling could get them, and Edinburgh could get them?
Unfortunately, no, I don't think so. I think Loughborough will still.
Oh my God!
I think they'll still win overall. But again, the gap is closing. It's not a full-on massive whitewash, if you like, for Loughborough, where they win absolutely everything. It's not quite like that anymore. People or universities are definitely getting closer, but they're still the number one university. I mean, you look at some of the names that we've already listed with Freya Colbert, Max Litchfield, and Laura Stevens. Those type of swimmers who are probably going to win their events, let's face it, and puts on massive points for Loughborough. And the other universities can't make up that ground, unfortunately. So, I still think Loughborough are the ones to beat, and they will always be the ones to beat. But you're right, the gap is closing. Stirling are definitely getting closer, as well as other universities as well.
It's beyond just your top swimmer that makes BUCS important. It's your second swimmer as well. And when, like you said, they've managed to get Max Litchfield swimming for them.
He's got a busy schedule as well.
He's got a very, very busy schedule. Which I think might make just about the difference. But Stirling and Edinburgh are closing. They are getting there.
Yeah, they are. Edinburgh especially, they are slowly catching up. Which is a good thing.
I like Stirling's intake this year. But no, I get what you're saying.
The more competitive it is, the more exciting it is. If it's boring when one team wins all the time. Imagine the Premier League and football if one team wins all the time. It's so boring, like the other football leagues, like PSG, for example.
And this is one thing, actually, that BUCS needs to build upon. The drama, the poolside. Take it away from county teams.
Yep.
How county teams runs the scoreboard. You need a scoreboard up that shows the points and the standings for which university is going. Because that is the important outcome at the end of the day. Top university. I need to see when I'm poolside who the top 10 are, where it's moving between each round. Put it on the live stream, put it on the scoreboard in the venue. That's the important stepping stone, I think, to take the drama up a notch, to get people on poolside interested more and get people on the live stream interested more.
Well, this is what Arena League does quite well.
Arena does
you go
it
into
as well.
that last race, that last relay, that last cannon, and teams know, right, we need to come first. We've got to come second in order to win. And so that's what the crowd needs in order to realise how important that this certain races are. It's an area to be fixed, I suppose, and maybe that's an area that they will eventually improve. But yeah, I think BUCS is one of the big events of the season, and it needs to be promoted more, in summary.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. We'll be back next week reviewing it. That just about rounds up our waffle for this week. Thank you so much for listening to it. If you have enjoyed this episode, please make sure you're subscribed on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And yes, big races are afoot. And me and Dan will see you guys in 7 days' time.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everyone, and I'll catch you on the next one.
You've been listening to the Propulsion Swimming Podcast with Scott and Dan. We want to thank you for joining us and invite you to subscribe to the show, as well as checking out the Propulsion Swimming YouTube channel for weekly tutorials and videos to get your swimming fix. We will be back next week. Until then, we'll catch you on the next one.